Senate Majority Leader Tom Bakk joins me now to encapsulate the end of session. Thanks for joining us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Senator, it's only been less than 12 hours since session wrapped up, but having a little bit of time to digest it, what do you think the message was?
Well, Governor Dayton was asked after the November election, what's one-party control going to be for Minnesota? What should people expect? And he used one word. He said progress. And as I reflect back on the last 5 months, I think we delivered on just that. I mean, we made some significant investments in early childhood and all-day kindergarten for every child in the state, money in our K-12 system, special ed, significant investments in our higher education system at the University of Minnesota in Minsk. Enough investments so that we're going to have a 2-year freeze on tuition at those institutions for our young people that are getting their education, getting their skills so that someday they can enter the workforce. Significant investments in job creation. We've made the expansion at the Mayo Clinic possible, and over the next 20 years they're going to add 30,000 jobs in Rochester. Major expansion at 3M here in Minnesota, and other economic development projects. The Mall of America is going to continue on their expansion to basically double their size over the coming years. So it's pretty exciting. And then, of course, my favorite topic is taxes, because that's where I've spent most of my time in the legislature. We did some significant sales tax reform and really, really significant property tax relief.
And let's talk a little bit about that. What can Minnesotans expect? It's not the check that the governor had initially proposed. What's the final package?
Well, there's a significant amount of new money going into the property tax refund program that people are familiar with. There's a significant amount of new money in local government aid to cities and counties. And that has an inflator built into it, so that, they're going to continue to get more money down the road. The Senate pushed very hard from the beginning of session to reduce some of the reliance on property taxes to fund schools. So in the tax bill, we're carrying a provision where the first $300 of voter-approved levy that a school district has, the school district can just levy that. They don't have to go out to the voters. And then there's a significant equalization where if a school district has very low tax capacity, the state is going to pick up a significant portion of that cost. We've had this growing disparity in educational funding across the state. Districts that have a lot of tax capacity are doing very well. They've got voter-approved levies up in the $800 a pupil area. And then in other districts in the state, and I believe there's 47 of them, that don't have a lot of tax capacity, they have no voter-approved levy. So there's this huge inequity in school funding, and this provision allowing a school board to levy the first $300 and the state come in and help pay the cost of that is a significant educational reform, especially for districts that don't have a lot of tax capacity.
And I have a couple of questions for you about the tax provisions. One is, you personally have been a strong proponent for years about expanding the sales tax and lowering the rate. That was on the table early in the session. It came off later. Was that a disappointment for you personally?
Well, I've tried for a number of years, you're right, to move more towards a consumption tax, and for a couple of reasons. And I think what people need to remember is income taxes, even though they're probably more popular, fall only on Minnesotans, only on people with Minnesota earned income. That's who pays income taxes. So when you have a system that's heavily reliant on income taxes, it all falls on your citizens. When you have a system that is more consumption-based, like on the sales tax, people that come visit our state pay it. Businesses pay about 46% of the sales tax that we collect now. So the business community pays a lot of it. So it really gets shifted to the corporate bottom line in wherever corporate offices are, Wells Fargo in San Francisco, or Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas, or John Menard in Wisconsin. Much of our sales tax burden ends up being exported out of the state, so it doesn't all fall on Minnesotans. So from a tax policy standpoint, even though you'd think that an income tax is more fair, really good tax policy also contains another component. Can you export some of it so that your tax system doesn't all fall on your residents? No, I was disappointed. The Senate passed a tax bill that expanded the sales tax to a number of services and other items, and we reduced the rate to 6%. We were not able to prevail at the end on that. We weren't able to lower the rate, but we did do some significant sales tax reform this year. And there are provisions that have been around since I was elected to the legislature back in 1994. Every single year that I've been here, bills have been introduced that say, cities and counties, why are we collecting sales taxes on them? They have to raise the property tax in order to send a sales tax check to the state. We just eliminated it. So for the first time since 1981, local units of government are not going to pay sales taxes anymore. That's $100 million a year of savings to local governments that I expect is going to be passed on in the form of property tax relief. And the second large component of sales tax reform we did, same thing. Ever since I came to the legislature, bills have been introduced to say, why do we, when businesses make capital equipment purchases, why do we collect a sales tax? And then 6 or 8 months later, we allow them to apply for a refund. And a lot of businesses don't have the accounting staff and they never even make application for the refunds. So finally this year, in the context of this sales tax reform article, that did not lower the rate, unfortunately. I would like to have done that. But we extended the sales tax to some business services out there, and we were able to exempt cities and counties from the sales tax and able to make an upfront capital exemption for businesses that are buying capital equipment. Now that was expensive.
And
that
you've been talking about that for years as well.
Been talking about it since I got here. So there's two major components of tax policy changes in the tax bill that I think are very, very popular with the public.
Okay, our entire conversation could focus on taxes, but let's shift a little bit. I do want to ask you, the GOP, of course, contends that the message of this session is it's overtaxing, overspending, overreaching. House Speaker Thiessen stated in that news conference earlier today that he would say for the last few years, the last decade, the state's been underperforming. What are your thoughts?
Well, since 2002, when I came to the Senate, in every single budget we've had since then, for more than a decade, a new legislature has been elected. They've came to the Capitol, they've got sworn in, they found out, hey, the previous legislature, they left me a deficit. I've got a problem to fix right away. We don't have a balanced budget. And finally now, after more than a decade, the next legislature that's elected after the 2014 election are going to have a budget where the books are balanced. And they're not going to immediately come in and have to manage a financial crisis of the state. I think it's the most responsible thing that was done in this session. We put a budget together with no accounting gimmicks, no shifts, no borrowing, an honest budget that balances for the next biennium, and I'm incredibly proud of that work. It is just irresponsible for one legislature to kick the state's financial problems down the road to the next one that's going to be sworn in.
In your opinion, will 2013 be known as the labor session?
You know, I think it's probably too early to write the history of this session, but I think probably this is the session that probably gets remembered for marriage equality.
Okay, with those words, I did want to ask you a quick question about the use of social media with the legislative session. It seems to have exploded over the years, and a lot of what was happening over the final hours between the House and the Senate was all over Twitter. It was all over Facebook, as well as things prior to that. In your opinion, knowing that you're not a big social media user personally, but do you think it's changing the way the legislature works?
No, I don't think it changes the legislature, but I do think what it does is feed a lot of information to the public that's not accurate. Because especially in the final days, people start speculating and guessing, well, what are the leaders doing? You know, what's being connected to what? And things always get connected, even between a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. In the final negotiations, a lot of things get connected as you try to work with the minority leaders in both the House and the Senate. The four leaders get together. And of course, everything is a buzz. Nobody knows what the four leaders are doing, so there's all this speculation going on and all this Twitter traffic traveling around and Facebook messages going around. And it's really mostly speculation. So a lot of disinformation gets out to the public. What people, I think, probably don't know is over the last 2 days of the session, the Speaker and I and both Senate and House Minority Leader had multiple private meetings, just us, to figure out how we could bring the session to a timely conclusion, how we could make sure that we got the money for the Capitol so the Capitol renovations can continue, because that takes a bipartisan vote. And fortunately, we were able to find a way to accomplish that. So there was a great deal going on between the four leaders, and of course there's rumors galore around the Capitol about what is it they could be talking about, what are they linking, and most of what you read on social media in the final days of the session is not accurate.
Okay, Senate Majority Leader Tom Bakk, we could talk for the entire program, but that wouldn't be fair. So thanks for your time, we appreciate it.
Thank you.